All right, Rabbi.
Okay, we meet again, Baruch Hashem, pre-Pesach. This is the second part of our Haggadah Shuir. So I think we just checked that we're up to the four sons. We're up to the Dalet Banim. But just maybe we'll start with one thought that applies to the Seder, or it applies to any time, but it's like what I like to call a back pocket of our Torah, because it's really something that you could use every single event and Shabbos that one experiences. When Yaakov Avinu wakes up from his dream, and this is just a general point, and then we'll get back to the four sons. When he wakes up from his dream, he says, "Ein zeki im beis Elokim b'zeh sha'ar hashamayim." Right? This is wow! I didn't realize this is the place of the Beis Hamikdash. It's the house of God and the gateway to heaven. Ein zeki im beis Elokim b'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. Asks Rabbi Lichtenstein, is it Beis Elokim or Shar Hashamayim? Right? A bias and a shar are not the same thing. A bias, a house, is a place you go to, while a sha'ar is a place you go through. It's a gate. So was the Beis Hamikdash a bias or a sha'ar? Those are different items. So Rav Lichtenstein explained that really it was both. On the one hand, the Beis Hamikdash was a place to go to. It was a goal. It was a ya'ad. It was a destination. It was a bias. But on the other hand, it was also a shar. It was an experience to go through, to take it with us. After we were in the Beis Hamikdash, we went and we brought that experience into our lives afterwards. It wasn't just a bias that we went to one and out. No, we went through it and we brought it with us. That was the Beis Hamikdash, a place to go to and a place to go through. And really, every experience on the Jewish calendar is both a bias and a sha'ar. Every Shabbos, every Yontif, it's a goal, it's a destination, it's something that we should relish and experience to the most as a bias, but also as a sha'ar. We have to use that and go through it and bring it with us and help it shape who we are, because that's what every experience is supposed to be. The Medrash says all mitzvahs are litzaref, to purify us. We have to use it to go through. And if it applies to every holiday, it especially applies to Leil HaSeder, right? Leil HaSeder is a bias. We have to focus on it. We have to do everything we can to make that as a goal, to set the table early enough, to do preparation beforehand. What kind of games could we get ready for the kids to play? Anything. But it also has to be a sha'ar. It also has to be something that we go through and we take with us, and we allow it to shape us, right? And that's how the Seder itself could be a bias and a sha'ar. So just 30 seconds. This could be applied to any life experience. If you're at a bar mitzvah, the message to this bar mitzvah boy is that he uses every experience in his life to be both a bias and a sha'ar. He should go and experience it, but also use it to become even better. As we stand under the chuppah, this chassan and kala have already proven through their actions that they live experiences as both bias and sha'ar. Or one could say, as we celebrate 50 years of wonderful, blissful marriage, right? We recognize that this is a couple that have lived with every Shabbos and Yontif as a bias, as a sha'ar. You could just relate it. You have to just have a little rabbinic license to expand it. Okay, let's get back to the sons. So we have the four sons. That's what we're up to, right? We did Baruch HaMakom. So the four sons. So there's a lot to say about the four sons.
Sorry, we didn't do Baruch HaMakom. You stopped right there.
Oh, we didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
So we will go back. Baruch HaMakom. Keneged Arba Banim. I didn't tell you the Keneged, Rav Beis Halevi. I did not. Okay, no. Here we go. We'll start with that. I thank you. So the question is, Baruch HaMakom, we thank Hashem for the Torah. Baruch Shanasan Torah, Keneged Arba Banim. The Torah is Keneged, is opposite the four sons. What does that mean? What is that word Keneged? It's a strange word. That the Torah is parallel, opposite the four sons. So Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, it's quoted in the Beis Halevi Haggadah, suggests that in every other area of study, if somebody studies physics, accounting, any study, law, there are beginner textbooks, there are intermediate textbooks, and then there are advanced textbooks. You build up. right? The fourth grader is not going to study the same material as the eighth grader, as the high schooler, as the Rosh Hashiva. Everybody has different textbooks. The magic of the Torah is that the same Rashi that is studied by the second grader, the fifth grader, the 10th grader, the Balabas, the Rav, the same Rashi. Everybody studies the same material. Keneged Arba. The Torah is Keneged. At your Seder, you will have children and grandchildren and uncles and aunts and grandparents, all the same material. We're reading the same Haggadah, but that's the magic of the Torah and the mitzvahs, that it relates to every single person, even on their level. That's Keneged Arba Abanim Dibra Torah. The Torah is Keneged all four sons. And then we continue with the four sons. Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Tam, and Yodei L'Shol. And a question that probably many of us have had over the years is, we don't really believe in labeling children. It's kind of like not our thing. We don't think it's healthy and productive. Like, okay, who's going to be the Rasha this year? Who's going to be the Tam? It's not like something that, I don't know, Judaism doesn't really believe in that. Right? So why exactly, what are we doing? So Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, we'll keep it in the Soloveitchik family for a minute. Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, Rav Chaim's grandson, suggested that really these aren't four separate sons. These are four stages in every person's religious development. When we're born, we're babies. There's nothing else in the world besides our mother's milk, diapers. Are we comfortable? Not any Yodei L'Shol. That's just baby. Then as we get older, we become toddlers, right? And we're very curious and interested. And we say, what's this and what's that and what's this? Mazos. That's a Tam. That's the next stage. Then we have the Rasha. Then we have what he calls the rebellious stage, right? That could be teenagehood. That could be however one wants to categorize it. And then finally, what he calls independence, and that's Chacham, and that's maturity. These are the four stages that we all go through. We are each talking. Well, Rav Aaron says the chiddush is that these four stages aren't mutually exclusive. All of us, each of us, have these stages within us. We have all four. Some hopefully are more open and public and worked on as others, but we all have a little Rasha in us. And we all have a little Tam in us, that naivete, questioning. And we're talking in this section of the Haggadah to all four of our parts of our religious personality. We're talking and we are connecting. The Rasha in us asks this question, and the Tam in us asks this question, right? And that's what this part of the Seder is about, because we're talking to all parts of who we are, right? We're not talking to four separate sons. That's the thought of Rav Aaron Soloveitchik. There's also one other thought. We'll talk about there's other messages of the four sons. Let's just ask this one. It's just hard to know what to say and what not to say. I want to try to get through. You know what? Let's hold off on. Let me just say one more thought on Baruch Hamakom, which goes into the four. Hamakom is not a common name of Hashem that we use all the time. Right? Why dafka here, right before we start the four sons, do we say Baruch Hamakom, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shana Torah? There are many names of God. Hashem, Elokeinu, Shakai, Eke. What's Hamakom? When else do we use Hamakom? There are two other times, at least, that we use the name of Hashem Hamakom. That, of course, is at a Shiva house. We say, Ashkenazim say Hamakom Yenachem Eschem. And we all sing it in Achenu, right? Hamakom Yerachem. So Hamakom Yerachem. What's the connection between those two? When someone feels distant, when someone feels far away from Hashem, we say Hamakom, and we say you might feel far, but Hashem is Hamakom, Mikomo Shel Olam. Hashem is in every spot in the world. And even if you don't feel that Hashem is close to you, when somebody's sitting Shiva, they just went through a tragedy. When somebody is Hamakom Yerachim, they're going through Tsaris, we use the name Hamakom. Even if you feel far, Hashem is close. And at the Seder, when we're about to address all the different sons, even the ones that might feel like they're a Rasha or might feel any Yodei L'Shol, who am I to open up a conversation? Right? Hamakom. Hashem connects to each and every one of you. No matter how far you feel, He's very close. He's very close. That's why we dafka see Hamakom as we start talking about all the different types of Jews and all the different types of personalities. Okay. Yochol Meirosh Chodesh. Yochol Meirosh Chodesh. Says the, 1 second. I just lost the screen for a minute. Where are we? Sorry. Yeah. Yochol Meirosh Chodesh. So the question is, what's the Havamina? What does this paragraph say in the Medrash? You might think that the mitzvah of Sibri Tziyas Mitzrayim starts on Rosh Chodesh. Tamalomar, no, it only starts on Erev Pesach and really on Pesach night. Why would I have thought? This is one of those questions that's in every Haggadah. Why would I have thought that I could start the mitzvah before Pesach? Right? You can't, there's no Havamina to sit in the sukkah before Sukkot or blow shofar before Rosh Hashanah. Why would I have thought that you could sit in start the mitzvah of Sibri Tziyas Mitzrayim before? So I saw this year in Rav Mordechai Eliyahu's Haggadah. Those who, I mentioned those who listen to the Haggadah Shuir from this year, this was in it, and if not, feel free. It's on the OU site with the other another number of years. He says, what happened on Rosh Chodesh? We read in Parshas HaChodesh that Hashem was commanded by Moshe. Hashem commanded Moshe to tell Bnei Yisrael about Karban Pesach and about everything that was going to happen. And it says, Vaya'asu. They did it. They did it. Kasher Tziv Hashem es Moshe. And the question was, they didn't do it yet. Rashi asks, Shmos, Parak Yud Beis, they didn't do it yet. Rashi says they decided that they would do it. And when they decide that they would do it, it's Ki'ilu they did it. So much in Yahadus has to do with decision making. Making a decision is the first step to greatness. They decided that they were going to fulfill the mitzvah of Karban Pesach, to take the Egyptian god and tie it to their beds to be Moser Nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right when they made that decision, Hashem says, okay, that's a significant stage. And there was even a thought that the Geula started then, and we would start the mitzvah of Sibri Tziyas Mitzrayim from Rosh Chodesh. Kamash, well, we don't say that. We wait till the actual Geula happened. But that Havamina reflects the importance of decisions, the importance of choosing a direction. I think we spoke last time about the direction versus position in terms of halach ma'anya. Look back at those notes. But decisions play such a crucial role. Well, there's an amazing Gemara in Kiddushin, Adaf Memtes. Remember this in the Daf Yomi, that the Gemara says, if a man goes over to a woman, he says, Harei ha'mukudeshes li amanas sha'ani tzadik. Amanas, that I am a very righteous person. The Gemara says, even if he never did a mitzvah in his life, afilu rasha kol yomav mikudeshes. Why, married? What do you mean he's a rasha? Shema hear her tshuva beliba. Maybe he decided to change his life. He decided, and that's enough to give him the status of a tzaddik, because deciding is the first step to greatness. We have to make those decisions, and that's the message that we learn from Yochol Meirosh Chodesh. And we continue, Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zara Hayu Avoseinu V'Achshav Kervano Amacham Lavodasa. Originally, right, we were Ovdei Avodah Zara, and now Hashem brought us close. Kervano Hamakom La Avodasa. There's a Sefer Hikarim that I like to quote. Talk about Mitchila. Who was Mitchila? Who do we start? We're talking about Avram Avinu. All the way back, Avram Avinu. He was, the Rambam says, he was an Oved Avodah Zara, and then Hashem chose him. Actually, you know what? We'll wait. We'll say that a thought on next paragraph. We'll say a different thought on Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zara Avoseinu. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, why are we going back to talk about Avodah Zara? Is there Avodah Zara nowadays? The Gemara says that in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash, they destroyed the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zara. Right? So what are we talking about? Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zara Hayu Avoseinu. Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We think there's no Avodah Zara. There's no real Avodah Zara. That's true. But there's things that smack of Avodah Zara. What are things that are non-negotiable in our life? If it's things other than Avodas Hashem, that's Avodah Zara, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe. What's non-negotiable? Is mincha non-negotiable, or is a client non-negotiable? Is missing a sports game non-negotiable? What's the anchor in my life that I will never change for anything? And what's important, but there are things that take priority. If Torah and mitzvahs and family, that is our anchor. And that's our avoda, and that's avodas Hashem. Anything else other than that is avodah zara. It's a strange avoda. And we have to make sure with all the things that we're involved in and all the things that we do, what's our anchor? What do we not budge on? What do we say, this is who I am? I remember many years ago, we still lived in Woodmere at the time. Remember, I met one of my son's sports coaches. He was in one of these leagues, football or hockey. Met one of his coaches. So I said after, yeah, what do you do? He's like, what do? I go to the rabbi's Shuir at 6 a.m. I said, okay, good. So what do you do? He's like, no, that's what I do. And then I go to work. I spend, I'm an accountant or whatever. I don't remember what he did. But he defined himself as going to the rabbi's Shuir at 6 a.m. That was who he was. That was his avoda. And everything else is, I spend my day doing stuff. But I remember it was just like he just said it. It was so inspiring. And it was from 25 years ago. I still remember the conversation. But it was fascinating. Okay. Baruch Shomer, next paragraph. Baruch Shomer Avtachasa Yisrael. Blessed is Hashem who keeps his promise. Baruch Shomer Avtachasa Yisrael. What promise? What promise? Bris Ben Abasarim. Going back to the original covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made with Avram Avinu. And the Sefer HaIkarim, Reb Yosef Albo, right, one of the early Rishonim, 900 years ago, one of the basic Rishonim philosophical works. There are many. I like to quote 4: the Sefer HaIkarim, the Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam, the Sefer Kuzari, and the Chovos Halavavos. Those are 4 of the major works of the Rishonim. So Rabbi Yosef Albo asks, Bris Ben Habasarim, right? This is the promise that Hashem kept, that he promised to Hashem. What does Bris Ben Habasarim mean? Anybody remember what those words mean? The covenant, Bris Ben Habasarim, the covenant of the parts. If you look at the English translation, what does that mean? The covenant of the parts. Well, what's a strange name? So Rashi quotes back in Sefer Bereshis, covenant of the parts means that the way that they used to make agreements and covenants in the days of old was that they used to take an animal, cut it in half, put it on 2 sides of the street, and the 2 parties that were coming into the covenant would walk in between these 2 halves. That's why it's called the covenant of the parts, covenant of the halves. Sounds very strange. Like, why is that the way to make a covenant? So like cut an animal and walk in between. Well, what is that? So explains the Sefer Ikarim. It's very, very deep. And this is why what he's about to say explains Jewish history. What does it mean when you make a covenant with somebody? It means that you no longer are 2, but you're 2 halves of a whole. That's what a covenant is. You come together in a connection, in a deep connection, that you no longer will be 2 different parties. You'll be 1 unit coming together, and you'll each be a half. And that's why, how do you make such a covenant? You take a unit that's a whole, that's a natural whole, not like a table, which we made. You take an animal, you cut it in half, and then you go through it, and in that way, you symbolize that you are each 2 halves of a whole. That's what Hashem did with Avraham. Avram walked through, and then the fire of Hashem walked through the 2 parts of the animals, showing Hashem is saying, forevermore, I am your other half. You are half, and I am half. Yisrael v'kutshabrichu chadhu. That's what the Bris Ben Habasarim was. That Hashem promised. Once Avram chose him, that's why we were Zocha. Right? Once Hashem chose him, Hashem says, okay, I'm with you forever. Right? And that's what we thank Hashem for. Baruch Shomer, this is such an important paragraph, because you know what this shows? We thank Hashem for Jewish history. Because, as we've mentioned, Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes 300 years ago, the greatest miracle in the history of the world was not Yetzias Mitzrayim or the Makkos. The greatest miracle in the history of the world is that the Jewish people are still here. Because in every generation, Omdim Aleinu L'Chaloseinu, Rachmana Litzlan, Ad Hayom Hazeh, Motzi Shabbos, October 7th. I mean, you don't have to look back the past 4 months. How many nations, how many people want to destroy us? And think back 100 years, and think back 200 years, and through every century, And where are those empires? Where's the Roman Empire? Where's the German Empire? Where's the Russian Empire? Where are they? They have fallen because we know Amanetzach lo yishaker v'lo yifached, and biyachad ninatzeach, but biyachad with our other half, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we know He's on our side, and we know we're going to get through this. Bruised, Rahman al-Itzlan, and hurt and pain, but Baruch Shomer after Chasal Yisrael, it's because Hashem made us His other half. And that's why He's with us throughout history. Baruch Shomer. Vehi sha'amda. Vehi sha'amda, we lift up the cup of wine. Vehi sha'amda, there's 100 pirushim on the vehi, but the simple pshat, the true pshat, is vehi is referring to this promise. Vehi was this promise, like we just explained. Sha'amda lavoseinu v'lanu. Right, Kadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu mi'adam. Right, that's exactly the pshat. That's the flow of Baruch Shomer to vehi sha'amda. But there are other pshatim about what the vehi is. And just say the vehi, like this one, you can ask, what's the vav? That's the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. The hey is Chamisha Chumshei Torah. The yud is the Aseres Adibros, and the aleph is Hashem. So vehi, our connection to Torah and Hashem, that's what has bound us. Vehi sha'amda lavoseinu v'lanu. We lift up the cup of wine when we say it. We cover the matzahs. It's not like magic. Sometimes you look at the Haggadah. Oh, matzah, cover, uncovered. It's like a whole game. Whenever you're holding the cup of wine, you cover the matzah, like we do by Kiddush. If you're not holding the cup of wine, which is most of Magid, then the matzahs are uncovered. It's not a magical formula that you have to remember, right? By Lafichach, right? Cover the matzahs. Okay, good. Vehi sha'amda. Then we go into Tzei Ulamad. Tzei Ulamad. Ma bikesh Lavan ha'arami. What did Lavan want to do to us? There's an amazing gra. And Rav Asher Weiss is Mosif on the Gra. Rav Asher Weiss is speaking in our shul in about 4 hours tonight. As Hashem. So the Gra.
Is it being recorded?
Nope. What?
Is it being recorded?
It should be. It's usually on YU Torah, and yeah, it's usually recorded. The Gra notes that there's a word that appears twice in Sefer Bereshis, and the Gra connects those two words. One time is when Yaakov Avinu is told by his mother Rivka, you got to go put on Esav's clothes. You got to go get the brachas. And Yaakov's like, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't want to. What's going to be? And what if Yitzchak finds out? What if Yitzchak feels me out? And what does Rivka say? Alai ayin lamid yud. Alai kilalas chabini. Your curse will be on me. Meaning I'll take the hit. I'll take the blame. Don't worry about it. Alai kilalas chabini. Fast forward to Parshas Miketz. The brothers, it's a famine. Yaakov says, go down to Mitzrayim. They say, we're not going down without Binyamin. Because the leader of Egypt says, we can't go down without Binyamin. Yaakov says, it's not fair. It's not fair. Yosef einenu, v'Shimon einenu. There's Binyamin tikachu, alai hayu kulana. On me is so many tsaros. All these tsaros are on me, alai. The Gra connects the two alais and says, alai is Rashi Tevis. Alai stands for something. Esav, Lavan, Yosef. Esav, Lavan, Yosef. What Rivka was telling Yaakov was, alai kilalascha b'ni, don't worry about Yitzchak. You are not destined to have tsaros from Yitzchak. Alai, your only tsaros are going to be from Esav, Lavan, and Yosef. Don't worry about Yitzchak. Yitzchak's not going to give you tsaros. Those are the three tsaros. Esav, Lavan, Yosef. Later on, Yaakov is saying it's not fair. I'm not supposed to have Yosef einenu, v'Shimon, it's Binyamin. Oh, I'm only supposed to have tsaros from Esav, Lavan, and Yosef, not Binyamin. You're not supposed to take Binyamin. Alai hayu kulana. No more than that. That's the Gra. Rav Asher Weiss, though, is Mosif that these three are not just happens to be the three in the word. These three symbolize the three types of tsaros that Klal Yisrael have gone through in the past 2,000 years. Esav, those are the ones who wanted to kill us physically. Those who wanted to annihilate us, the Hamans, the Hitlers, the Hamas. All three, I don't know if it's something with an H, Rahman al-Itzlan. But that's one type of tsar. Then you have the ones like Lavan. Lavan wanted us to become one nation. He didn't want to kill Yaakov, but he wanted them to intermarry and become one, spiritually destroy us. And that was the Hanukkah story mostly. And throughout history, we have those who say, okay, you can live if you convert to Christianity, if you bow down to the cross. Right? So you have a choice, you can live. So that's the Esavs and the Lavans. But those are two from the outside. The third one are the Yosef Tzaras. And that's the ones, the inner fighting amongst Jews. The brotherly sinas china says that's the hardest Sarah. That's the only one that's in our control. And yet that's the one that we're still sitting in Tzaras for 2,000 years. But those are the Esav, Lavan, and Yosef, the three Tzaras, the Alai. When we say this paragraph, when we think about Lavan, we also need to think about, what our job is in terms of trying to right the wrong of the past 2,000 years. Okay, then we have more psukim. We darshan the psukim from Mikra Bikurim, and we have the one time that Moshe Rabbeinu was mentioned by Yemenu B'Hashem of Moshe Avda. Moshe makes one appearance in the Seder, and the question obviously is, why does Moshe get so little screen time? Moshe should be the man. He should be all over the Haggadah, and yet he's not. So I remember many years ago, probably about 40 years ago, I remember in the White Shul, I heard about Pelkovitz, Yivad Dvar Torah, and he says, who was the first person to ever do the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, of Haggadah Lebincha? Who was the first person in history to do it? Said Rabbi Pelkovitz, Moshe Rabbeinu, because his kids weren't there. Right? His kids came after. His wife brought them, Sipporah brought them, and he told them the Haggadah Lebincha. He was the first one to fulfill the mitzvah. You think he spoke about himself when he spoke about those kids? You know what I did? I did the makas. Give me some credit. Yeah. Your dad is unbelievable. No, I'm sure he left himself out. He didn't talk about himself at all. We mirror the way that the mitzvah was done the first time, and we leave Moshe out. And in that way, we give Moshe all the credit. By focusing on his humility and imitating him, that way we emphasize how much we adore him and respect him and recognize his contribution. But that's why we don't say it, because we copy him like the first time that the mitzvah was done. That's a thought you can say anywhere in the Haggadah, also, by the way. Good. Moshe Rabbeinu. What else we talk about? Makas. We can talk about every one of the makas. Feel free to look in the Haggadah. The Haggadah has a lot of Torah and all the makas. I'll just mention one, which is a somewhat well-known thought. If you know it, it's well-known. If not, we'll make it well-known. The stipler on Svardeya. Right? The Chazal say that Vatal hat Svardeya. Oh, it's the frog went up. And Rashi says, what do you mean the frog went up? So Rashi quotes, how did the makkah happen? So this big frog came out of the Ya'ar, and then every time they hit it, so it split into two. And they hit it again, and they split into two. And that's how it says one frog, because then they kept splitting. So the question that the discipler asks is, if you see that every time you hit the frog, there are more frogs and more frogs, so stop hitting the frog. Just don't hit the frog. You see it gets worse every time you hit the frog. So don't hit the frog. Stop it. And what's the answer, says the discipler? When you're angry, you don't think straight. And you're out of control. And even things that don't make sense, that hurt me, I do, because that's what anger does. It takes me out of who I am. Rahman al-Islam, every situation of road rage. Is that a good thing for them? I have to show him that he's a stupid driver and I never do that. Like what? And it ends up causing terrible, terrible problems. You see every time you hit the frog. But when you're angry, you're out of control. Sometimes you have a child who's like angry. They go into their room. This happens in camp sometimes. And they like throw their clothes all over the floor. You're going to have to clean that up in 10 minutes. Like, what are you doing? You throw your bed. But when you're angry, you can't help yourself. And that's what we learned from the Mitzrayim. They couldn't stop hitting the frog. Right? We have to make sure that the first thing, remember the Ramban, the Igeris HaRamban, the first piece of advice that the Ramban gives his kids is don't raise your voice. Don't raise your voice. That'll help you, prevent you from getting angry, because anger leads to all the other others. Right? So we have to make sure that Svardeya. What else? Arov. One more mock-up. Arov. Wild animals. So the pasuk says that the mock of Arov was all the wild animals. The es ha'adama asher heim aleha. The wild animals in Mitzrayim and the grounds that they were on. What does that mean? And the ground that they were on. So one shot given is that animals act even more ferociously when they are in their natural habitat, when they feel comfortable. So in Mitzrayim, how could you have polar bears and lions and tigers from the Amazon and snakes and scorpion, like every crocodiles? Hashem, not only, the nace wasn't only the animals came, but they all came with their habitat. They all came. Hashem created the habitats in Mitzrayim of the Arctic Circle and everything else that was needed for all of these animals to live in. Wow. Appreciate the nace. Appreciate the nace. The Vilna Gaon says, you know what the Adama, he gives a different shot. You know what it means? There's an animal. Anybody here learn Mishnayos Kilayim? Mishnayos and Kilayim talk about an animal called the Adnei Hasadeh, which the Mefarshim describe as an animal. It sounds like a Harry Potter animal, right? It's an animal that is connected to the ground. It has like an umbilical cord to the ground. You can't get near it. It's ferocious. It's very dangerous. The only way you could get near it and kill it is if you shoot an arrow at its umbilical cord, and that disconnects it from the ground, and then it dies. So the Adnei Hasadeh, it lives from the ground. So it suggests the Gra, you know why you have to bring the ground to Mitzrayim? Because of this Adnei Hasadeh. Because you have to bring the animal and the ground that it's on, because it needs the ground to live. Okay, you need to be the Vilna Gaon to remember a Mishnah in Kilayim that talks about the Adnei Hasadeh. Okay, good. There have been doctoral theses written about that. The Rambam in the Pirush Mishnayos on that Mishnah says, and people told me that they saw this animal in the Far East. And then others write on the Rambam, I don't believe them. Okay. Weiter. Dayenu. So Dayenu, we thank Hashem for everything. And the question is, why don't we just say, Hashem, thank you so much for everything? We have line after line after line. Hashem, you're the best. No, we go through every little detail. Why? Because if you're ever at somebody's house, you go there for lunch, and you say after lunch, like, oh, wow, everything was great. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it all. Thank you so much. That's one level. Yeah, and one should do that on a basic level. But you know what's even more meaningful? Everything was great. You know, the potato kugel, that was the texture was amazing. And the chicken, it's my favorite. And the soup hit so many spots. And the more detailed you are in the thanking, the more meaningful is the expression of gratitude. And the same thing, let's say a child comes home. All your kids are going to come home, and the grandchildren will come home with projects before Pesach. Like have little baby Moshe in the river, and look, Daddy, look, Abba, look what I brought. You're like, oh, wonderful, looks great. Wow. Or do I take it in my hands and I say, wow, look what you did, such color here. And you drew this so nicely. And you use the glue over here. The more specific we are in our recognition, the better the child feels. And that's Dayenu. Over and over and over again, every step of the way, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's not just general, thanks so much. Thank you for the kugel, and thank you for the challah, and thank you for every little one, because that's a greater expression of what we feel. And thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for each and every statement. Good. We continue. We continue with the we get towards the end of Magid, and we have Hallel. So there's a question that the number of questions that are asked on this Hallel at the end of Magid. Number one, we're saying Hallel sitting down. We never say Hallel sitting down. You have to stand to say Hallel. Question one, Question 2, we split halal in half. 2 paragraphs before the meal. How are we allowed to split halal? And finally, the third question that was asked 1,000 years ago by Rabbeinu Haggadah. Rav Haggadah asked, why is there no bracha on halal? Right, we always make a bracha on halal if it's a din, right? The Svardim don't say bracha on halal on Rosh Chodesh because it's a minhag. But we, Ashkenazim, say a bracha even on that, but it's a din. You always have, where's the bracha? Says Rav Haggadah, quoted in the Rishonim at the end of Psachim. You know why we don't say a bracha? Making a bracha on this halal would ruin the point of this halal. What does that mean? Rav Haggadah says this is a halal of shira and not kriya. It's a singing halal, not a reciting halal. What does that mean? Explain Rav Soloveitchik. After talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim for hours, and now we come towards the climax, and we're reaching Lefichach. Making a bracha would be minimizing the experience. Would it be saying, okay, everybody, now we are obligated to and commanded to recite praise to God? No, that's not the point. The point is we're supposed to have a spontaneous overflow of emotion that we can't not say Hallel. We scream out Hallel, and we don't formalize it. It's like my father asked me, can you get me a drink of water? I'm like, sure. I am hereby commanded to fulfill the precept in the Torah that says that I need to get my father a drink of water. No, that's not why I'm getting my father a drink of water. It's because I love my father, and I recognize that I want to do this for him. That's the halal at the end of Magid. We dafka don't make a bracha because it's supposed to be natural. It's supposed to be something that we want to do. And you can break it in half because you only talk about the parts that have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. And you can be sitting down because it's not formal. It's not a formal halal in that way. That's the goal. That's what we have to try to get up to with the halal at the end of Magid. So we finish Magid and we eat the matzah and the maror. Yeah, we could spend many more hours. Let's try to fit in like 3 or 4 more thoughts. Most have the minhag of eating an egg. Eating eggs at the Seder at this point. Getting the meal. So why do we eat an egg? The Ramah quotes that the minhag to eat an egg because an egg is a food of mourners. A machal of avelim. And the night of the Seder, the night of the week, is always the same night of the week as the following Tisha B'Av. Monday night's going to be the Seder. Monday night this summer is going to be Tisha B'Av. We hope it's a holiday, but it's always same night. So we remember, even though we have Pesach, but we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, and we're still lacking. So we remember Machal of Avelim. But the Mea Shiloach, one of the Ishbitzers, the Ishbitzer Rebbe says there's another idea. There's another idea about eating the eggs. Mammals only have one stage of birth, right? We're born. But other creatures like fish or snakes or chickens have 2 stages of birth. They lay an egg, and then the egg is hatched. We eat an egg to remind us, after spending 3 hours on Yetzias Mitzrayim, we remind ourselves, this is only stage 1. 7 weeks from now, we're going to have stage 2 of the birth of the Jewish people. This was only the physical birth, and you can't stop now. So you eat the egg to remind us that, yes, this was crucial and important, and we had to focus on it. And there's a mitzvah to focus on it, but we also dream and look forward to Shavuos 7 weeks from now, because that's the second stage of the birth of the Jewish people. That's the message. Message of the egg. Message of the egg. Okay, moving right along. Moving right along to after the meal. After the meal, we have benching. This is an important message also. By benching, we have 3 brachas that are daraisa, one's derabanan, yichas reinu, and then we have many harachamans. So there are those that always say, oh, I only bench the yichas reinu. Minhag hagra. It's like all of a sudden, people don't do any gra things except till yichas reinu. I bench like the gra. Yeah, do you do the other 9,000 things like the gra? Okay, but people have minhag hagra. But the question is, in our benchers, what most of us hopefully do are say all these harachamans. What are we saying all these harachamans for? All these extra tefillas. Benching officially ends by Yechas Reinu, the brachas, that's true. But then we have our harachaman, Hashem, you're the best, Hashem, bring us Mashiach, Hashem, bless the Balabayas, and bless my parents. The Chafetz Chaim says, because once we bench, Hashem is ecstatic. Hashem is so happy that we're fulfilling the most important bracha, the mitzvah daraisa. Hazan, you recognize that I gave you Hazan Sa'olam, and you remember Eretz Yisrael and Bris Milah. You remember all of that. So after we do that mitzvah, you know what the Chafetz Chaim says? Hashem is basically has his arms open and says, okay, ask me anything you want. Ask me anything you want. And that's why these harachamans were instituted. Harachamans Zakedim Mosa Mashiach, Yishlach L'Netzel Yohan Navi, right? Whatever you want. We have to use that opportunity. Recognize that when we do mitzvos, Hashem loves it. And it's an Eis Ratzon. And Hashem wants to give us. And that's why it's an opportune time. This is always any benching. But especially at the Seder here, we have to do what we can to use the opportunity that Hashem has his hands open and wants to give us bracha. Harachaman, harachaman. And again, there are those that that add in extra harachamans. That's okay. That's okay to add in extra harachamans. But again, that's the message of benching according to the Chafetz Chaim. Okay. What else? Echad miyodea. Echad miyodea. So you feel free that you do not have to say this thought when you say Echad miyodea. You could say it during the day. You could save it. It could be at some Siddharim. If you start talking at this stage and not just singing, you will be, vanquished from the table. And but it could be sometimes the most anti-people are already sleeping on the couch. You got to know exactly like who's still there. They might appreciate it. But Echad miyodea, what's that? What's the message of that paragraph? 1 is Hashem, and 2 is this, and 6 is this. I saw many years ago, Rabbi Avram Shuir in Halakha Kval Libov, he mentions the following. He says there are 2 Gemaras. One Gemara says, the Gemara Menachos, that if you see the color tcheles on the tzitzis, that'll lead you to think about the sea. And if you see the sea, it'll lead you to think about the sky. And the sky will lead you to think about the Kisei HaKavod. Right? All the way up. Amazing. Seeing one little blue thing will make you think about all. But there's another Gemara. There's another Gemara that says that if I look at the colored garments of a woman, it could lead to inappropriate thoughts. L'chara, even blue. If I look at blue clothing of a woman, it could lead to inappropriate thoughts. So yes, Rav Shuir, like, what's the difference? Does blue lead you to the Kisei HaKavod, or does blue lead you to Hirhurim Rhyme? Which is it? You can only do one thing. So he says, well, it depends what you're doing the rest of the day. If the whole day I'm involved in Torah and mitzvos, then when I see blue, that's where my head is. And that's what I'm going to think. I love this story. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach once asked one of his Talmidim. He never left Eretz Yisrael. He never left Israel. Rav Shlomo Zalman, he asked one of his Talmidim after he got back from Chutz La'aretz, did you see the skyscrapers? So the Talmud looks at him and says, what? He says, yeah, did you see the skyscrapers? He's like, why is the Gadol Hador asking me if I saw the skyscrapers? He's like, yeah, I saw the skyscrapers. He's like, really? Do you know that I hold that if there are 2 babies born at the exact same moment, on the 3rd floor and on the 113th floor, they could have their bris milos on different days. If they're born at the 2nd of Shkia and on the 113th floor, you can still see the sun, and on the 3rd floor, you can't. Did you see the skyscrapers? Rav Shlomo Zalman saw skyscrapers, and he saw Hilchos bris milo. That's what he saw. Because he was in the zone. Whatever he saw was with those Torah glasses. So if that's our zone, if that's what we're in the rest of the day, so then that's what we're going to think about when we see blue. If we're involved in other things during the day, then it's going to lead to other thoughts. By the end of the Seder, we should be on such a level that whatever we hear, you hear 6, Mishnah, 10, Aseres HaDibros. Whatever we hear, we should connect to Torah and mitzvahs. That's the message of Echad miyodea. You hear 1, you hear 2, you hear 13. Everything has to do with HaKadosh Baruch. And we end the Seder with Haggadah. Haggadah was a later addition. The question is, what's the message of Haggadah? Right, sounds like a nice, cute little riddle. There's obviously a lot of depth. So Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau writes in his Haggadah, the father of the chief rabbi now, he says life, Jewish history specifically, is like a puzzle. It's a puzzle piece. We only see a little portion. Imagine if somebody gives you a puzzle piece. You look at the puzzle piece, you have no idea what the puzzle is. You have no idea what it's supposed to be. I just see like gray. I see even maybe you see a flower. You have no idea what the whole puzzle looks like. But all of us are only one piece of the puzzle. The whole puzzle goes from Adam Arishon all the way to Yemos HaMashiach. Haggadah means there's a stage and there are different pieces of the puzzle. And we don't see, we're just part of the going. We have our own piece. We represent the piece. He quotes a story. He says when he was chief rabbi, he once got to meet Colin Powell. You know, Colin Powell was the first African-American who was chief of staff. I think he was under the first Bush. I don't remember. Second Bush. Anyway, so Colin Powell was a big supporter of Israel. So Rabbi Lau asked him, why are you so supportive? I mean, we're very happy about it. He said, you know what? He says, I grew up in the South Bronx. He says, my family didn't have any money. He says, I used to deliver newspapers on my bicycle. You know, I used to deliver. There was one Orthodox Jewish family that whenever I delivered, they said, thank you. They brought me inside. They gave me hot chocolate. They made me feel like a person. And I got to befriend them. They helped pay for my college degree. And I realized, and I said to myself, if I ever make something of myself in life, I'm not going to forget this Orthodox Jewish family. I'm not going to forget where they come. If this is a nation that connects to Israel, then I'm going to support them. Did this family realize the puzzle piece that they were being part of that was going to have ramifications for a whole country? No, they just saw their little piece. We have to recognize we're just a piece of the puzzle. We, Be'ez Hashem, David, that we're at the end. We're almost, the puzzle's almost complete. It's hard for us to see the whole picture, but the puzzle's almost complete. And Rahman al-Itzlan, over the past 4 months, we've had a lot, too much. One is too much of Va'asa Malach HaMaves. But we know right after that is Va'asa HaKadosh Baruch B'Shacha LaMalach HaMaves. So we daven and we end the Seder with a hope, with a dream that we know we're all part of the plan. But we daven so hard, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's time for you to show yourself. It's time for you to come. It's time for you to, for all the world, V'chol b'nei Vasar yikru v'shmecha, right? Everyone will recognize you. Everyone will praise you. And we daven for the day. Yeshayahu Navi says, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. The nations are going to say that, not even the Jews. Everyone will recognize how Yerushalayim is the source, is the heart of the whole world. And we should just have peace and miracles and Yeshuos and Achamos very, very soon in our day. Nisan had the redemption. Ad Hashem, Nisan will have the redemption very, very soon. Everybody should have a wonderful Yantif and a Chag Sameach.